Welcome to the Smart Dating Academy podcast. I'm Bela Gandhi, the founder of Smart Dating Academy and your host. I started Smart Dating Academy in 2009 because I had this crazy knack of giving people dating advice that actually worked, that I took. I've been married for almost 25 years, and now my company helps people to date smarter and to find love. This podcast is meant to bring more love into your life, no matter where you are and what you do. And we're here to bring more life into your love. Smart daters, welcome back to your favorite episodes, which are the, drumroll please, Smart Dating Academy love stories. I have the love story of love stories today from a dear client, former client, and now a dear friend who recently got married. I welcome to our show the most beautiful Lilah, who is going to share with you her story of how she's probably like so many of you out there. And Lilah, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Bella. I'm so excited to be here. Love and love stories are my favorite things to talk about. So it's just wonderful to be able to have a foundation and a platform to do that today.
Oh my gosh. And for those of you who don't know, Lilah, her is exquisite looking, and her before and after photos were so awesome and dramatic that Lilah's photos have probably been on every major media segment I've done, from GMA and the Today Show and all over the place. And it reminds me I should still be using your gorgeous photos for before and after. So tell us how you got tell us about your life before you and I came to our chance meeting in a fitting room at the Limited.
Absolutely. So I grew up in a very middle-class family in Milwaukee, and met the person that I thought I was supposed to spend my life with, moved to Chicago and started that relationship, and kind of got my legs in Chicago, kind of got my first big job, and was doing all that great stuff, very, very focused on high performance and making sure I had a good career, and wanted to make space for family and all the things that all of us typically would want to experience and manifest. And so jumped in all the way and really enjoyed having that relationship until I didn't. And so one of the things that was a challenge was that relationship didn't work. And now I had this small child. So we did end up having children, or one child. And I probably could have done better in that relationship, but long story made short, it didn't work out. And so I found myself divorced, trying to manage a career, in business school, and really a single parent. And so talk about transition. I mean, I was in transition. And so I tried to focus on the things that I could control. Two reasons. A, makes my ego feel better, like I can control it, right?
Right. And what you focus on, you put more energy into, you start to become more successful, and it becomes feeding the beast.
There you go. And I loved it. It also helped me to numb what wasn't working. It also helped me to ignore what wasn't working, because I was getting so many accolades over here. I didn't have to worry about the fact that, hey, you know what? You probably haven't really done a great job keeping any relationships, to be quite candid. And your dating life is like non-existent and spotty and not really where it needs to be, or not where you want it to be. And therefore I didn't focus on it, because I felt like I don't know what to do. I actually, when I got married, dating sites weren't really a thing,
right.
The online dating, I didn't really know about it. Right. And so I was like, I am feeling consciously incompetent about this entire process, and on and on and on. So you and I got a chance to meet, and we had done a spread for the Limited back when they were still in business. And I'll never forget being in a dressing room, and you and I met. Strangely, the best things that happened to me are when my parents are down. My parents are down, and you're like, "Hey, I'm Bella," and I was like, "Oh," and you asked me one question. You said, "Hey, who are you?" Blah blah. We started talking, and you asked me one question. You said, "Okay, well, wow, Lilah, it seems like you're hitting on all cylinders on everything in your life." And I was like, "Yes, sister, let me just tell you." And then you followed it up with a whiz bang, and you said, "How's your love life?" And I wanted to go and hide, because I was like, that is not, I don't have a story there. And that's how you and I got connected.
Oh my gosh. So let me add a little watercolor to this here. So Lilah and I somehow back in 2015 were both nominated for something called the New Look of Leadership. And this was this campaign that the Limited had focus grouped lots of their fans. And they said, instead of seeing all these models, we'd like to see like women that are our neighbors, that are single moms or moms and they own businesses or they're corporate executives wearing clothes from the Limited. So they sought out, 30 women from Chicago, and Lilah and I happened to be in this fitting room at this photo shoot together. And I'll never forget, I said, oh, and we were literally couldn't see each other, but it was this really friendly time. I said, oh, what do you do? And she's like, oh, I'm in software sales. And I thought, oh, for whom? What? And then she told me, I was like, wait, my friend Jackie. And she's like, wait a second, what do you do for work? I said, oh, I started this business. It's called Smart Dating Academy, and we do date and relationship coaching. I think you might have peered your head over my fitting room wall. And I think you might have said, we need to talk. So we exchanged phone numbers. We texted. A couple days later, and I probably have this text in my phone, it says, I would like to have lunch with you on Tuesday at 12 o'clock, and we can meet wherever you would like. Very Lilah style. And as my friend Jackie told me, when Lilah's drinking something, you want what Lilah's drinking, right? So I said, absolutely, Lilah, let's meet. And we met at Summer House in Lincoln Park. And we had lunch, and the rest,
history.
You're like, yes, I need to do this. Right. And we talked about fixing pickers and how we all have patterns in the people that we've chosen in the past. I wish I could see a show of your hands, dear listeners. How many of us have picked red flaggy, narcissistic, swaggery, highly alpha people, right? Not you, Lilah. Not me, Bella. She just crossed her eyes.
All I can say is you were a force to be dealt with, because I always felt like I have all the answers. Just ask me. And we were sitting out at that lunch, and you were like, hey, Lilah, this is what I do. This is how I do it. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I really need that. And, I don't know if it's really worth it. And do I really want to pull the trigger on this? And you said one thing to me. You said, I don't know. Well, how much did it cost to get out of your last relationship? And I was like, sign me up.
What was the cost of your divorce, right?
Unbelievable. For those of you who don't know, that doesn't always go the way you think. And so that was just something I wasn't prepared for. I didn't know that could happen. I didn't realize. And so it was very expensive. It was not something I had budgeted. So besides the emotional challenges that you have to deal with that, then there's the financial challenges you have to deal with that, especially if one party makes more than the other. And so those are all things that were kind of swirling in my head. And I had to admit that, hey, the way that I've been going and what I've been doing isn't working, as evidenced by the outcomes. And sometimes it takes a little bit of swallowing your pride and your ego to be able to accept help and have somebody say, hey, listen, we need to do something different. And then what I love about you, Bella, is that you had the guts and the courage to say it. And so that was fantastic. And that's how we got started. And then you started coaching with my esteemed colleague, Lindsay. So tell us about the journey. Take us through in as much detail as you remember. What happened? It was great. There were things I was uncomfortable with. But,
we do that.
You can't grow unless you're willing to be comfortable. So I'm like, all right, great. We're going to get into this. And I wanted to jump right into tactical. Let's get the profile behind. You're like, no. Let's take some steps back. And you guys gave me a book list and some homework. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't want to do any homework, right? And I remember getting the book attached. And one of the first things that Lindsay said was to read it. And, I was like, oh man, I got to read the book. But from the second I opened it, it was like, zoop. I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. Trying to find out if I was, avoidant or anxious, or there's a couple different ones. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, I want to find out like which one I am so I can understand what my patterns are. And why do I keep choosing other avoidance? So not only was I an avoidant, I kept choosing avoidance. And then I realized that my pattern was to pick somebody who was an avoidant, make them a project, and try to turn them into a secure, which is impossible. Absolutely impossible. But I didn't realize that's what I was doing. And so through the coaching with Lindsay, she's like, that's what you're doing. I remember having to write out like what went wrong in my relationship, something that I had never written before. Right. So I went through all those changes, paid all that money, but never stopped to write down like, why didn't this work? Right. The other thing that I was super uncomfortable with, but it was helpful, was I had to send an email to my friends saying, why do you feel like I haven't found the right partner? It was like a, relationship 360. And the response didn't come back to me. Also not comfortable with that. And so, Lindsay kind of got all these inputs. And so it was super helpful for me to be able to take a step back and be like, okay, let's look at some of the patterns. What are you doing? And I had to write out like all these different things about different relationships that I'd had. And that was so therapeutic for me. That was so therapeutic for me. And so by the time we actually kind of got to saying, hey, here's what the plan is for Lilah, I'd gotten a chance to educate myself. I'd gotten a chance to take a look at what my patterns were so that I didn't repeat them again. And I felt really strong and secure that I was ready to take on the energy of this next phase, because I didn't have time, right? This is the thing. People are like, oh, I'm a fine relationship. But I was definitely that person. I was like, dude, I'm in business school, going to school at night, got my child, I've got a career. I don't have any time. And for those of you who have, you're doing co-parenting, that you only get 2 weekends a month, right? And it's like, how much am I going to really spend time those 2 weekends in a month? And so I needed a system and I needed a way to be able to figure things out. And so that was super, super helpful to be able to have that coaching. And so the other thing I remember is one of the prompts was write out your ideal guy, right? You want your ideal guy or girl, write out all their qualities, blah, 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 blah. And I wrote, tall, good looking, well-dressed, all of these external
successful,
makes this, whatever, right? And I wrote all those things down. And then I remember Lindsay saying, all right, now write down all the traits of a friend. They were completely different. And I remember her saying to me, all right, Lilah, now the goal is to be able to find somebody in the friend that has the friend traits. And I'm like, but how will I ever notice that person? These other things I can see. These traits that you have written down here for the people who are my close friends, it took me forever to get to that. Like, how do I find them in a bar, right? They're not holding a sign that says I'm these people.
How do I see that on Match? Right. How do I see that on an online dating?
And so I was like, how do I? And she's like, you don't. You give it time so that you can find out. And I was just like, oh, that sounds like it's gonna take a really long time. I didn't want to do it, by the way. I didn't want to do it. I was like, you know what? I don't want to do that. Like, I just want it figured out for me. And she's like, unfortunately, it's not just figured out for you. You have to give it time. And I go, well, how will I do that? She goes, you have to go on dates and learn and see what happens. And I go, well, how many days is it gonna take? She goes, I don't know. I don't know how long it's gonna take. She goes, but ultimately, you have to give yourself time to be able to see these things. And by the way, when you're doing it, you can't be sleeping with the person. And I was like, oh, I am out. How do I get out of this? How do I get out of this? I don't want to do
refund.
I don't want to do this. And she's like, really? I'll never forget. We were at, I think it was Four Seasons, and we were having a glass of champagne. And she was talking to me. She was giving me all these, kind of, here's your plan. And she was like, well, Lilah, the plan is that, you're going to be on Match for this much time. You're not going to, we just had very specific things, but none of them were, oh, you get a chance to date and kind of have this relationship. Because one of the things I learned in Attached was, once you start sleeping with somebody, then you get oxytocin exchange, and that makes you attached. It's like the same thing as what you exchange when you're breastfeeding a baby. And I didn't know that. And she goes, so how are you going to be able to see these things and stay objective if you've got oxytocin floating around? And I was just like, oh man, come on. And so she's like, no, that's the plan. This is what we have to do. And so I felt like I was leaving with like, how am I going to do that? I was like, I really want those things, but I still just don't know how to do it. And she said, just give it time. I go, well, how do you know it is time? She goes, when you're having 2 or 3 dates in one day or week. And I go, I don't have time for 2 or 3 dates in 1 week. And she's like, that's how you know. When you will prioritize it so that you're seeing this person all the time, that's when you know that you're connected, it's safe, and it's you've now started to build these traits, and you can see these traits play out.
Exactly.
And so I've never done that before in any dating experience.
And you all know, dear listener, we're slow and steady, right? We do a date a week for a few weeks. And if that person doesn't throw down red flags and seems like they've got all your high GHQs, high and good husband qualities, because Lila's female looking for a male, and it's a date a week. And then when he doesn't throw down any red flags, seems like he's tracking for the qualities that make you happy, then you can increase it to 2 dates a week. Then maybe over the third month, you ramp that up to 3 dates a week, and then you get exclusive. So there's a whole method to this, which she's crossing her eyes right now, right? It's a big deal. And it is so different because we're not taught how to do this. We're not taught how to date, right? So when we come in and we're like, here's what you're going to do, and we're going to survey your friends and family. And I love data. For those of you that know me, I'm a former finance person, ran an engineering company, everything. I want to have a good sample set. I want to know what I think. I want to know what Lila thinks. I want to know what her people think about her dating history. And that gives us this comprehensive set of facts to really guide people through this. Comfortable, not always effective. Let's get into that now. So
very effective, very effective. So after Lindsay kind of gave me that rundown, I was, I was like, I don't want to do it. Right. And so she's like, really? Well, this is what your sister said in the feedback, and this is what your friend said in the feedback. And I was like, oh my gosh, they said that? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, oh no, dang, that's probably true. And she's like, yeah, so why don't we try something different? And so I was finally bought in. It took a little bit. I'll tell you, I was resistant. It's hard to change.
Sure.
And I was like, all right, I'll sign up for your program, right? I'll do the whole, I had already signed up, but I was like, I'll actually take action on it, right? Because there's one thing to say, yes, I want to work with you. It's another thing to actually do it, right?
To do the work.
Commit to do it, right? And so I said, I'm in. All right, I'm in. Give me your program. It certainly can't be any worse than something I've done in the past. And I follow the rules, hook, line, sinker. And
you did.
I will tell you, everything from the photo shoot to writing the script and the emails and all that, making it so that I had it down to a science, which was helpful for me because I'm a seller, right? So that whole idea of kind of building a pipeline made sense to me, right? And it's like, you're not going to close on your first coffee. You need time to kind of float it out, right? And so that made a lot of sense to me. That was actually kind of fun. That was a ton of fun, just kind of going through it. And then having like the Google Voice, that it went to that one first, and having the interactions with the people so that they would ask me for my telephone number. And some people didn't. I remember you saying, this is not about a pen pal relationship. We're not trying to have weeks and weeks of pen pal. We want people to ask you for your number, and that's it. And that was easier to close for, and I wasn't so attached to it emotionally. I also remember her saying, you're not allowed to reach out to anybody for the first 2 or 3 weeks. They have to reach out to you. And then we switched it.
Yeah.
Then I could reach out to people. And actually, I met my now husband from a reach out. And it was funny because I would probably have never picked him out. Right.
Okay. Because, go there. You're dating all these people. You got your funnel. You've got Lila. When you see her photos, you're going to look at our website. She's stunning. Okay. The girl's breaking the internet at this point. There's no lack of dates going on. So now you're sitting down, you're dating in a different way, but this was a long time into the process. This wasn't right away. No. How long had you been dating? Was it a year?
No. So you and I started somewhere in the October timeframe in 2015. And I think my profile got up and going by like January, right? So January of 2016 is when my profile actually got up. And so I was only dating for about a month of just random. Now, granted, I've been divorced and doing my own random stuff on the side for a while. But as far as your program, it was about a month. And so that first month, I couldn't reach out to anybody. I had to just take the flow coming in, right? And they had to go through my process. And it was funny because some people were like, oh, I've got to, they got the Google Voice, they're like, I have to have you paged, or, oh, I have to have an exact time to talk to you. Cause I'm like, I can talk on this time or this time at this time. And a lot of people would filter themselves out. They're like, I'm not going to schedule an appointment to talk. Great. Buzz off.
Bye.
there were all of these kind of barriers to get people to opt out, which was great because you didn't care, because you're like, I'm not looking for Mr. Right, I'm just going through this program, right? So the second month I was allowed to reach out to people, and that was, hey, you're going to reach out to, I think it was, I don't know, you guys gave me some quota per day or per week.
3 to 5 people per day.
Yep. And you're like, hey, and we already had everything pre-written, so it wasn't a lot of time. I was just like, all right, I got 15 minutes, boop, 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 right? And you're like, you're not looking for Mr. Right, you're not looking for profile. All you're looking for is for the person to have interesting photos, not one photo, no photos with kids in them, and you had all those different things, but just nothing negative in their profile. That's all you're looking for, is nothing negative in their profile if they seem like fun. That's it. And so it was easy. I was like, oh, well, great. Boop, 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 right? I had like, it was really, really simple because I wasn't overthinking it. And one of those emails was, or one of those reach outs was to my husband.
And you did the reach out to him.
I did the reach out.
And now let's just ask this question. What drew you to him? And was he like the people you had dated and married in the past?
So no, not at all.
Not at all.
What drew me to him is he seemed like fun. Like he didn't take himself too seriously. He had like all these pictures of him on the beach with a Santa hat on with all these different people. And he just seemed like fun. And actually it stood out because most guys don't have all that. They've got them like some sporting event, you know, or
dead
in
fish,
front of the mirror, taking the picture, or, you know what I mean? Like guys usually didn't have a ton of pictures, right? Or them at some, you know, as you could tell, it was like their LinkedIn profile shot, which was also kind of just not
stuffy.
And so he had so many photos. And I was like, oh, he didn't take himself too seriously. I can tell. He was kind of funny. And I was like, okay, good enough, right? Like, and that's all I thought.
Okay. So he looked cute to you. Now you send your first volley over the internet, a message. Now let's go step by step through what happened, because I love all of this.
So it's now end of January-ish or early February. And I send that volley out. Now, granted, I've already got flow, right? So I've already had like 1 or 2 dates with other people.
Right. There's deal flow coming through.
Right. And I throw the volley over and he bites and he says, "Are you real?" And I'm like, "I'm real." He's like, "Because your email or your message seems so professional. It almost seems like it's not real." And I'm like, "I'm real." And so I have my next kind of already pre-written message set up. And he goes, "Wow, are you a poet? Because you speak so well." And I'm like, "No, I'm not a poet. I'm just a person." Then bam, the next email. Because again, I'm just trying to get him to ask for my number, right?
Right.
And right on time, he asked for my number and he goes, "Well, you know, can I have your number? We should talk." And I gave him the spiel. I was like, "Hey, I'm free Sunday at 1, whatever it was." So he calls me and he has an accent and he's not originally from the United States. And
now, did you know that before? Did you know that?
No, because I had never talked to him before.
So he's got
an
accent.
It was only kind of the chat. And so he calls me on my Google Voice number and he says, "Hey, I'm Dani, da, 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 da." And I was like, wow, he's got a really thick accent. And so he's like, "You know, I have to tell you, Lilah, I'm really better in person. A lot of times people can't understand me over the phone. So if you're free, maybe we could get together for a coffee." And I'm like, well, it was a Sunday. I just so happened to not have my daughter. It just so happened to actually be available. And I was like, "I'm actually available." Usually I would have like booked it out. I was like, "I'm actually available this afternoon." And he was like, "Great. You know, where would you like to get together?" I'm like, "Well, I'm in this area." He's like, "I'm actually in that area too." We ended up living only about 1.5 miles from each other, 2 miles.
Crazy.
So it was easy for us to like find a place. At the time it was in Andersonville to have a coffee. He was like, "Well, why don't we have a coffee today?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, sure, let's do it." So we got together like 1.5 hours later, and I walked into the coffee shop. He was already there, sitting down. Grabbed my coffee, and I'll never forget looking over at him. He was sitting in this area that was super sunny, and he had the biggest smile on his face. And I was like, "Oh, he's cute."
Did he look like his photos?
Yeah, he looked like his photos. He was cuter in person.
Of course.
Because he had like sunglasses on and some of them. Anyway, so I came over and I sat down and we talked and I thought he was cute and da 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 da. And I remember him saying, "You know, when you come to my country, we'll do X, Y, and Z." And I was thinking, dude, I'm never coming to your country. I don't even know if I'm ever going to see you again. Like, this is just kind of a part of my flow, right? And he was just really nice. And so then at the end of the date, we were about to leave and I was like, okay, because I always just would catch an Uber to go home because no way am I getting anybody's car. And he was like, well, I can drive you. And I'm like, I don't know you, stranger danger. So I'll just wait for an Uber. And he was like, my car is right here. And I'm like, I don't know, something about the guy just seems nice. Maybe I should go with it. So I did.
Your gut said go.
And I remember his car had so much stuff in it, and I could tell, I was like, oh, he is a dad, which I knew he, had a son, and I could just see all the baby stuff in the car. And that actually endeared me to him.
Sure.
Oh, so not only does he have a child, but he's like engaged with the kid, right?
He's in it. There's Cheez-Its, crushed up
Cheez-Its, there's crackers. And as a, single mom, I was like, I get it, right? And I was like, oh, this is, even though, now that usually would have driven me crazy, like, oh my gosh, to clean up your car. That day, it was like, okay, so he's just a normal person, super engaged with his kid, and I actually like that. So he gives me a ride. I don't give him my exact address. I'm like, you can just drop me off at this corner close to it.
Right.
And that was our first date.
Oh my gosh. So was he better in person?
Oh my gosh, 150%. Yes. I'm so happy that we didn't just do the call. He was better in person, just a warm, charming, sweet person.
Okay. Now, so the first date's good. Now, what happens? You've got some deal flow. Where does this mysterious gentleman, Dani, can we say what country he's from?
Yes.
He's from Spain, you guys.
It's phenomenal. So I really liked him, but I had a lot of things to do, right? So, and I've got, and I was still in the program, and we were still like, flowing, and he was like, well, hey, let's get together again. And I was like, yeah, but like, if I had to schedule it, I'm like, dude, I schedule a month and a half out. And I know that sounds crazy, but I couldn't do stuff during the week because I had to go to school at night, and I had homework, and so I really only had 2 weekends a month, and I would plan those in advance, right? And so it's like, okay, I don't have another free Friday lunch or whatever until like a month from now, right? And so people had to be cool with that, and a lot of people weren't. People were like, no, I don't want to wait for you that long. And you're like, great. The red flags, people will tell you. Like, I went on dates where we're like, yeah, I never really get back to girls. They don't really like me because I'm just not like available. And then you'd be like, oh, what is wrong with you? People will tell you, like, when you're not like trying to hook up with them, and your emotional bank account isn't at zero, and you're like, no, I have a plan, and you're feeling secure. You'll be like, what is how did I not see like this kind of stuff before? And I also didn't drink. So I didn't drink when I went out on dates, and I would only meet people for lunch. I would not go out on evening dates because I didn't want to have the pressure of, having that awkward, thing of who's going to kiss and where we're going to go. And I also didn't drink. So I didn't want that to kind of slur my thinking. We all know our thinking get a little slurred. So those were kind of my two kind of benchmarks that I had as well. And so, yeah, we had our initial date. I couldn't get him back on the calendar for about another month. And so our second date, he was like, what I really liked, he was like, okay, great. It was also a Sunday. Sundays afternoons were our time, right?
So a month later, dude says, fine, I'll take a month from now.
Yeah. I love that about him. He didn't give me crap. He wasn't like, you need to, and then sometimes you get each other's like number, and then they're just texting you all the time. And you're like, dude, I can't engage with you that much right away. Like, I've got
right.
Anyway, so it was a month and a half. It was a Sunday again. And he said, I will set up the reservations. Now that was different to me because a lot of guys were like, let's get together. And I was a vegetarian at the time, and they'd be like, well, I don't know anything about vegetarians, so you got to figure it all out. Red flag, Google it, right?
Google it. And it's not hard. It's not hard.
Some effort, but guys just don't, right? So he was like, I got it set up. We'll go to this place. It's good for vegetarians. So he had it all set up. We went and we had brunch together, and man, was it fun. We had a great, I talked his ear off. And it was just so relaxing and so easy, right? It was
easy.
So
easy.
Right? And after brunch, he's like, why don't we walk to Foster Beach? We walked over to Foster Beach because it was close by. And again, we're both in the same neighborhood. So that helped, right? Like, that helped. And we walked to Foster Beach, and we're looking at the beach, and I'll never forget, he looks at me and he gives me a kiss, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know if that's okay. I don't know what to do. But it felt great. And so I was like, you know what? That's all right. Just flow with it. And we walked back to the car, and I got in the car, and he was like, I'd love to see you again. And I was like, yeah, definitely. Now, that was in like, I don't know, maybe April-ish, late March, early April. I didn't see him again. We had a lunch date for the next month, and I got crazy with work and I had to cancel. Then my mom came to live with us, or not came to live, my mom came to stay for an extended period of time, and I just didn't have it. I was like, I don't have that extra moment, or I didn't make, and for whatever reason, I just didn't have it. As a matter of fact, I was so like done. My 3 months was up. I wanted to just kind of have nothing for a little while. I just needed nothing for a little while. So I actually didn't make the date with him. And instead of making me feel bad about it, he just said, no problem. And he didn't text me again. Another great thing. He wasn't like, oh, let's get together. He was just like, I get it. Let me know when you're not busy. Great. So I had a period where I just did nothing. I wasn't online. I wasn't here. I just did nothing. Right. And then towards the end of June.
Now you've had 2 dates with the man. Okay. 2 dates. And now we're going from January and now we're in June. Okay. So for those of you who are like, no, guys will just flake out, just keep listening to this. Okay. Now we're 5 months later.
I know. And I don't know what happened, but that day I remember where I was. I was at Montrose Beach and I was doing something and I thought of him and I was like, you know what? I owe him dinner. He bought me lunch. I blew him off for the second time we were to get together. I owe that guy dinner. And Lindsay and I, when we've been talking, I was like, I really like Dani. I really like Dani. She's like, I don't know. You should think about Dani. And I said, I really like him a lot. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to reach out to him. And if he responds, great. I don't know what he's up to. It doesn't matter. But I'm just going to say, hey, listen. And I remember the text. I said, hey, you probably don't remember me, but you and I had a couple of dates and I know it's been a long time, but I'd love it if you'd let me make up I'd love it if you let me make it up to you by treating you to dinner next Friday. That's it. That was the whole text. And he responded and he was like, of course I remember you. And I would love to get together for dinner, but I'm in Argentina, wherever he was traveling. And so I can't get together with you until the end of the month, which is the best response ever. For me, it was great that he wasn't just like sitting around eating Captain Crunch, just waiting for something to happen. He was like, yeah, I'm busy. I'm doing my thing.
I got a life too. You're going to have to wait, Lilah.
That was the best thing for me. So we wait. And I made reservations for this place. It was my first dinner date. After all that, I was like, I'm ready for a dinner date. It's been several months. I'll give the guy Saturday.
I'll give the guy
a Saturday night. And so I was sitting there waiting for him. I was nervous because I was like, what I loved is he didn't give me any crap about not reaching out or not being available. He just like
easy breezy.
So I'm sitting there and I see him walk up to the restaurant. He has black shirt on, black pants. And I was like, wait, is that him? He had cut his hair. And I don't know what he did, but man, oh man, when he walked into that restaurant, I was like, I don't know if he was just tanner. I don't know what it was, but I was just like, oh, that's him. Oh, that's
a fine man that just walked in. And I hope that's him.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, he's cute. Oh my goodness, he's cute, right? And so we had a nice lunch or a nice dinner. It didn't take more than an hour and a half because I don't like long dinners. And so I was like, well, great. It was great to see you, Dani. And, blah, blah. So he goes, so are you busy right now? And I was like, well, it's just, it's 10. I'm an early night girl, right? Because I didn't want to have that weirdness, right? And he was like, well, I would love it if I could take you out dancing. I'm like, you want to take me out dancing? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, well, but we don't have it planned. And he's like, no, we can do it now. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. And so we get into an Uber and we go to some place downtown and we salsa dance. And I mean, we had a great time. I was like, this is awesome. He was so much fun. And, I let go of the reins. I let him kind of manage. And we were in an Uber going back. And I was like, I've had so much fun with you. And he was like, I've had fun with you too. And he's like, but Lilah, we could have more fun. I said, what do you mean? He goes, you just need to be available. Been a really long time since I've seen you.
That gave me goosebumps. You just need to be available. Hi, avoidant. Nice to meet you.
He's like, you just need to be available. And you know what? I was like, considering the last time we got together was March, it's not too much to add. Like, I was like, you make a strong point, right?
Right.
And,
we can do this more than quarterly.
We can do this more than quarterly. So he said that, and I will tell you, we went from that date to having a date once a week. And then we went from once a week. At our high point, we did get to every day. So I could get together with him early in the morning. Then he had to pick up his son. And then we could get together like midday because he was coaching, doing some other stuff. And I could get together with him for lunch. And then after my classes were over and I had everything done and he was done with everything, at like 10:30 at night, we'd get together again. And I mean, we were like inseparable. And it was great. And it was easy. It was the first time I'd ever been in a relationship where I was like, this is the most natural, easy thing I've ever experienced. It just flowed. And to be candid with you, it still is. It still is. It still is. That's my story.
It still is. And how did, you're culturally different. And that's a hard thing sometimes for people to get their arms around. Could I date someone who is a different ethnicity, a different race, a different culture? You had how did you imagine where you would be versus where you are? And how has that been to navigate?
So it is an effort, right? So first off, you got to be open to cultures, which I was. I was already very familiar with the European culture for whatever reason. It just felt natural. What I liked was his values, right? And his culture, it's all about family. It's all about slowing things down, savoring the moment. And that was quite candidly the opposite of what I was used to. So I really enjoyed and thought it was refreshing and exciting and adventurous to be with somebody who was of a different culture, right? The race wasn't as important. It was more of just a different culture and bringing something new and different to even my experience, right? So that actually wasn't a hard thing for me to get over. And it was less about what we were different in. It was more about, are we aligned on our values? And to be candid with you, I already had a child, he already had a child. And one of the things Lindsay coached me early on to say was, do you want more children? Right? Because if you don't ask that question, and if the answer to that question would have been different, I would have been like, hey, this is fun. I'm gonna let you go. Why? Because I knew I didn't want to be pressured to have a child for somebody when they gave that answer of someday. No, I'm done. I am done. I don't want to have that issue later. And so we were just aligned on like, nope. And interestingly enough, he also was divorced and had a very young child, right? Very young child. So it was almost like we were in the right place of life at the same time. I had dated people who were like, 10 years older than me and their kids were in college. And it was like, yeah, I know all about kids. I know all about, and you're like, do you? Because like, I still need to be like, having Friday nights, looking at, Frozen. And they didn't really want to do that. They're like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to go out. And you're like, so we're not at the same place in life, right? The good thing about he and I is we were in the same place in life. And so that really, really helped, more so than where he was culturally or where I was or my race or whatever. Like that was less of a concern. Yeah.
I love that. And he's a totally different package and yet the perfect lid to your pot.
Oh yeah. We climbed Kilimanjaro in 2018 together.
Oh God. Yes. Okay. Let's get to the story. So now we've been dating.
Yep.
Okay.
So we're started dating in 2016. 2018, I finished my MBA. And then I was like, all right, as a part of finishing my MBA, I want to climb Kilimanjaro. Never been camping. Let's just do that. And so we decided to start training for that, blah, blah, blah. So it was summer of 2018. And we were in Tanzania. We were sleeping in a tent for 7 days. There's no bathrooms really. And like, you're living on the land. And I said, if we can get through this together, then he's probably the right person. And so we summited, which was great, and had this great experience. And when we came down and had our victory dinner after taking a shower for the first time in 7 weeks, I can't even tell you how much dirt was under my
7 weeks?
I'm sorry, not 7 weeks, 7 days.
Oh, geez.
I hadn't taken a shower in 7 days. And so anyway, after taking our shower and getting to our victory dinner, we were with other people as well. I decided to ask him to marry me. And
okay, wait, say that again. You decided what?
I decided to ask him to marry me. Now, I did not check that with him first, right? Because I had gone through this really terrible divorce, lost so much money. And I was like, no, I don't want to be married. But whatever reason, I decided that if we could climb Kilimanjaro together, that will be a sign to say this is the right one. And so, and I realized I didn't really have a problem with being married. I had a problem with losing money again, which there's things you can do to manage that. So I'm like, all right, well, if I can just manage that, then I don't have to have my life, I can move forward down this path. So we're sitting at dinner. I told one of the other people, like, hey, I'm going to ask him to marry me tonight. So can you get it on my phone? It's a great video. He has no idea it's coming.
None. You guys don't talk about getting married. But I remember you called me before you went and you told me you bought a climbing ring from REI. And you're like, what do you think? I'm like, do it. I love this idea. So I'm waiting. So she's got this climbing ring, which I think is a ring that you buy for yourself that shows I made it up the summit.
Well, it's just a plastic ring because climbers don't want metal.
Oh, okay.
Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so you can get it. So yes. So I got this climber's ring and I start telling this story about life and happiness. And he's like sitting there like, yeah, Lilah's telling one of her stories. And I said, and Dani, you were a key part of a lot of the joy that's been in my life. And so I thought this would be a great time to ask you to marry me. And he's like, what did you just say? Like, it was so funny. He was just like, did you, what just happened? I do not.
And how many people were in the room now at this point? 12.
People who we summited with, I asked them for. So these are the folks who we've been living with now for the last, 7 days. And so he's there. I don't recommend it, by the way. Definitely. He paused for about 30 seconds. It felt like a half an hour. And I've got like the people ready with champagne and a cake, which sounds like a small thing, but in Tanzania, there is no like, jewel you can go to. Somebody's mama has to make the cake. And anyway, so I've got everything ready, right? And they're waiting for him to say yes. Talk about role reversal. And he's looking at me like, I can't believe you just said that. And he goes, oh, yes.
Oh, I love that.
So he says yes. They bring out the cake. I am relieved and happy and thinking, Lilah, why did you do that? That was a terrible way to ask. And we have this huge celebration. It was great. And the next day, I said, now listen, I realize I put you on the spot. So, the people who are here, we never have to see them again. We can wait. We don't have to tell people, why don't you try it on for a little while and see how it feels? And then if we decide we still want to go down this path, we can. So I kind of gave him an out. Thank God. He was like, I appreciate that because that was a surprise and I want to know what changed and blah, blah. Long story made short, we came back and we waited until Thanksgiving to tell our kids and our family.
How many months?
Was like in July, August. We waited until like November to really tell people. And because he needed to be ready too, right? And I was totally fine with that. I was like, brother, take your time. I made the ask. Right? I don't know.
You did it.
I made the ask and you said yes. And I'm okay with whatever happens from here out. I made the ask, right?
I love that.
So we told the family and then we set up our wedding for Spain and then it was COVID. So we had to cancel it. And so we ended up getting married in Puerto Rico. We eloped and it was amazing. And the rest is history.
I was going to come to your wedding in Spain. I know. But then that dreaded darn pandemic came into the middle of it all. I couldn't be happier for you. And for those, I want you to know, and this was not your first go around with marriage, right? It can happen.
Yeah, it was probably my third go around. I don't count the first one. The
first one, happened, but it's kind of like a mulligan, right? It's a do-over. Right. Then there was that second one. Yep. And now 3 times a charm.
I always say the first one I was just too young. The second one, he was just the wrong person. The wrong person. And then the third one is the right one. And you know what I like about this time around? I chose him. The other 2 times the people chose me and I was like, okay. And I kind of went along with it. This time I chose him all the way through. And that has worked out.
Oh, that gave me goosebumps. You sent the first message. You controlled the speed of the relationship. You asked him out in the second quarter for the second date. Okay. Right. And you dated for years and it was easy. And you decided, I do want to be married to him. And dear listeners, so many of us are like, God, divorce sucks. God, marriage sucks. I don't ever want to do that again. But what I will tell you is just like sweet Lilah, when you meet the right lid to your pot, that can change. That can change. And you never know what's going to happen. And if there is a story and a situation that can inspire you to go, here's this girl that came in who was like, it's going to be on my terms, ends up to some extent, you control the terms. And yet he took you salsa dancing.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it was a nice little ballet of, kind of back and forth. I got a chance to play the role that I felt was the most safe, right? I never had anybody kind of like getting into my boundaries or me feeling like I didn't want any of that because I had been through so much of that already, right? All this expectation that people have. I really needed somebody who could kind of meet me where I was at, and then we could fast forward together. And he's always risen to the occasion every single time. He's like, okay, wait, you want to do what? I'm down. He's always been okay with that, right? Which is great. That's what I needed. I just didn't know.
Yeah. You need a partner.
That's right. A partner.
A
right?
partner.
He's been a great partner. We still have so much fun together. And I'm so grateful that I get a chance to experience this part of my life with him.
I have full body goosebumps. I couldn't be happier for you. And I'm so honored to, just have met you in that fitting room that day.
Nothing is coincidence, right? Nothing is coincidence. And just the way this is played out, right? That was just the beginning of a whole bunch of pieces falling into place for me. So your coaching, your guidance, your firm hand sometimes when you needed it, has made all the difference for me in the world. And I will tell you, I remember you saying, Lilah, people who go through my program don't just get better in their relationships, they also get better in their careers. My career has taken off. It has taken off by applying some of the same principles, right? For what you told me and managing, like, okay, make sure you understand who you are, make sure you understand what you're doing, and make sure you understand how you're showing up and how are people receiving you, right? All of that has to do with it. It's not just the dating piece, it's you as a whole. And so my life has just been amazing, I will tell you. And it just continues to expand all the time.
Oh my gosh, you went from a rock star software salesperson. Now you're a yoga teacher, you're a speaker that commands 5 digits to speak because you speak on, and we're like giving each other badass looks across the screen here. You've built the life you love, and you have so much love in your life.
I do. And they all go together. So if anybody, my message to everybody, anybody who's listening to this, if anything I said to you, you can resonate with it, or you're like, okay, that speaks to me, take action. Do something. Give yourself an opportunity to try something different or new. Give yourself the opportunity and the compassion to learn a new way of being so that you can get different results. If you want things to change, you have to change. And that's the hardest part. It's you changing, right? Letting go of those old patterns that don't serve us. Maybe they make us feel good, but they don't serve us, right? And it takes a strong person emotionally to be able to say, I need help here.
Yeah, I need help. Absolutely. And I'm so glad that we were a step in your process. I'm just grateful to know you. And I love this story. It's like the best part of my job, getting to relive these fun stories and fun moments. And the fact that you have so much love has changed the trajectory of your daughter's life, has changed the trajectory of your stepson's life, because they're going to grow up in healthy, happy, fun homes. You have changed generationally what will happen in your families.
That is such a strong statement. Now that gave me goosebumps. You're right. That's how important this stuff is. And we take it so casually. Like it's just something to do. No, it's that important.
It's that important. Yeah, it is that important. And if you're debating whether or not coulda, woulda, shoulda. And if you're able to do this, do it, because you're not only changing your life, but you're changing the lives of those around you in conceivably profound ways that you can't even imagine. And isn't that exciting?
Thank you, Bella. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for everything that you're putting out into the world. Thank you for helping people to find their true selves so that they can show up and attract what they actually want.
I love you, Lilah. Mwah. I get to have drinks with you. Probably by the time this episode is dropping, we will be downtown having something non-alcoholic together. I might be having some champagne, even though she won't share champagne with me anymore.
I can't wait. Thanks for making time and space to chat today. This has been fun.
We love you. Thank you for sharing your story. Made my day.
Ciao.
Smart daters, until we meet again, take some inspiration. Do something for yourself. Take that change. Follow me on Instagram at Smart Dating Academy. Sign up for our newsletter at smartdatingacademy.com. And if you are called to make a real change in your life, send us an email about coaching with us and get on the wait list. Until next week, I bid you farewell.